Good morning once again, everyone. Time right now is 8:55. You're watching News 13's Gavel to Gavel live team coverage of the George Zimmerman trial. We also have News 13's Kelly Cook covering this case for us from day one, actually. She's joining us live outside the Seminole County Criminal Justice Center in Sanford. Also here in the studio, legal analyst Mark NeJame and web anchor Christine Webb. And of course, don't forget, minute-by-minute updates right now from inside the courtroom. You can find that at our website, cfnews13.com/Zimmerman Trial. Okay, here we go. Starting week 2 of testimony. Kelly, let's go ahead and start with you. The focus today should be what we're hearing. We focused on the gun, what direction the shot came from, any DNA residue from Trayvon Martin. Can you walk us through what we can expect?
Well, it could be, Beth. We really don't know at this point, but that certainly has not come up just yet in court. Ballistics, we still haven't heard from Chris Serino, who is the lead investigator in this case. We still haven't heard from the medical examiner. Which direction will the prosecution take in this case in week 2 of testimony? It's very possible that they could wrap up their case sometime this week and hand it over to the defense. So what do they want to leave with the jury? Live look inside the courtroom right now. George Zimmerman coming into the courtroom, prepared to start the day. 9 a.m. the jurors were scheduled to come indoors to begin testimony. They originally were supposed to take care of some housekeeping business at 8:30 in the morning. However, apparently the attorneys got together and took care of any issues that they had behind closed doors. No need to come in early. So Judge Deborah Nelson is looking to come through those doors any minute now. While we have a second, let's bring in News 13's Mark NeJame, our legal analyst, who's been standing by ready for week 2 of testimony. Been with us ever since jury selection. So Mark, what are you thinking? A lot of talks about ballistics. This might be the day to start that. What do you think is going to be coming up today in court?
Well, if the state holds true to form, they're going to finish up with their responding, anybody who was responding. They've run a real clean timeline. If you look at it, they've made it very easy to follow. They've literally laid it out chronologically from start to finish. So I would expect that that's what they're going to continue doing. If they have any witnesses who were the next in line, next in place as far as what happened and who did what, I think that's who we can expect. And I think you're definitely right. Obviously, Serino, the lead investigator on this case, who interestingly took a different position than most of other law enforcement who showed up and who evaluated this case. He wanted Zimmerman arrested from the onset. Everybody else, seemingly everybody else, opted otherwise, and as we all know, Zimmerman was not originally arrested and not originally charged until statewide came in. So it is going to be interesting to see Serino, because he likely feels a bit vindicated that the statewide prosecutor came in and did in fact bring formal charges.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, bring people up to speed about what happened on court on Friday. I always find it interesting, Mark, how they like to, what idea or what witness they want to leave with the jury. And the last witness that the jury heard to go for the weekend was Lindsay Folgate, physician's assistant. George Zimmerman went to go see the day after the attack. Let's take a listen quickly to what she had to say on Friday.
Difficulty with falling and maintaining sleep. Started to exercise intensely with MMA, but this has not helped.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last sentence? Started to...
Correct. Difficulty with falling and maintaining sleep. Started to exercise intensely with MMA, but this has not helped.
And were you able to determine MMA as being mixed martial arts?
Yes.
I believe there's a highlighted part in that page where you've got, in terms of social history, exercise, is that correct?
Correct.
And what did you notate there in terms of social history exercises to the defendant, George Zimmerman?
That he was involved in mixed martial arts 3 days per week.
Now, Mark, we all know why that was a big deal there in court for the jurors hearing for the first time, of course, because who testified that what he saw was somebody using an MMA style to fight George Zimmerman. We also want to mention the defense came back and said those injuries that George Zimmerman sustained could have been life-threatening, depending how much longer that fight went along. How do you think that played to the jury?
Well, look, they both used this physician's assistant to their advantage. The state wanted to show that these were not life-threatening injuries. They also obviously got in the fact that Zimmerman was a fighter to the extent that he knew MMA 3 times a week. The defense, on the other hand, wants to show that there was a reasonable fear that Zimmerman had that he would either die or that he would sustain serious injuries. Remember, it's the reasonable standard. It's a subjective, not an objective standard. Well, judge is on the bench, and we'll pick this one up.
A quick sidebar here in this case, in the George Zimmerman trial. The state saying they are calling Mr. Nakasone to the stand. He is, of course, works for the FBI in their audio analysis field there for the FBI, being called to the stand. Kind of surprising here about what the state is calling him to the stand for. As we all know, he said in his report there was not enough information in order to come up with an understanding about who was screaming for help. He did the analysis there, but he is the next witness to be calling, so we understand maybe a direction that the state might be moving in here in the George Zimmerman case. Let's bring in News 13 legal analyst Mark NeJame now for his thoughts about calling this particular witness. What do you think the game plan might be for calling him, Mark?
I wish I knew. This is an interesting one. They're not following the game plan. They've not filed their timeline with them, it seems like. And this seems to be way out of order. I think that the state realized that by the end of last week, they weren't doing as great as they were expected and needed to be with the state presenting its case in chief. So I would suspect they've reviewed something, have found something, and they are bringing him back in. So it's a surprise, because this was a witness who that the defense used, and it kept out the critical, helped keep out the critical part of the state's attempt to get in the 911. Excuse me, their expert that the judge didn't find credible. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Again, could this be playing to the part of how we heard from Jonathan Good earlier this week? We felt would have been a defense witness. I'm not quite sure if he really plays to anyone's side here. He kind of simply said, I can't make a call about who was screaming for help, but you just never know what might be some other reasons or what else he can testify to based upon what he heard there that night. But it quickly called for a sidebar. When they called that witness, maybe there is some concern there about crossing the lines about what was decided in the Fry hearing. Is that possible, Mark?
This is not the time to review anything. The judge has ruled on the Fry hearing, so I don't see them bringing up anything as it relates to the Fry hearing. You know, one can always slip up, though. I would be surprised if this defense team did, but, you know, maybe somebody said something to him that is harmful to Zimmerman in the course of questioning him or whatever, but I just can't figure it out. I mean, when you look at what went on the first week, it has followed a strict timeline. There's not been one witness called out of order. There's not one deviation from the beginning of this to where we end up landing each single day. If we knew the witnesses that they were intending to call, we can see that they haven't skipped a beat. Well, they're now breaking up, so I'm anxious to see what the purpose of this is, because you have to believe there are some objections from the defense. So here he comes. So he's definitely going to be taking the stand.
Let's see what he has to say. Let's check back in.